Hello there. My name is Chrysoloris Jackson. I am a biblical grief and loss counselor. My experience started over 20 years ago when my wife at the time asked me to help. She actually told me about a radio program that she was listening to that talked about certification at the College of Biblical Study in Houston, Texas. So I enrolled in that class with her prompting and got all the way through the first 3 years of that course when my father passed away. And then I had to go through the grieving process of losing a loved one. I have expanded that since that time to silent grief and loss. Because silent grief is that type of grief that we suffer when we have no idea why we're feeling depressed or out of sort. It's because we are grieving. We grieve loved ones, we grieve animals, we grieve friends. It's just a matter of us deciding and recognizing that I'm depressed for some reason or another.
And I'm Elizabeth Henson. I am a grief support specialist. I am an ordained minister, and I work as an interfaith chaplain, working with people basically for grief and loss. And I will share with him in the fact that the loss. I think my first loss for sure was I was 6 years old when my mother died. And that was my first personal memory of a loss. And so throughout my life, I come from a large family. There were a lot of deaths, but I also find that there's a loss of those friendships that you have. And he even mentioned loss of a pet. And I got to experience that for the first time this year. Was working from home, and I heard this cry and could not imagine what was going on. And I was actually on the phone with one of my members that I would support through my work, and I could hear my 20-year-old daughter in the background, and I could not understand. All I could hear was "Dad," and she's screaming, and our cat's name was Dash. And I was like, "What is wrong?" And she says, "Dash died, Dash died." And I'm like, "What?" And she found her. And I think even for that, she's had losses, but for her, that was traumatic. She found her, in her room. And so we've had that loss this year, experiencing through that, working through that. But one of the things when I work with people with grief, I also talk about, so grief is the loss of a thing, the loss of mobility, the loss of maybe driving or taking care of yourself. And so mourning are the ways we show up. And so the depression, the when we can't get out of bed, and sometimes those, I always say, when we stuff and it goes sideways, sometimes that grief that has been stuffed for so long, you've been mourning and you don't know why you're angry and you're blowing up at everybody. It was those unresolved, the silent things that you talked about. So that comes out. And so I think when you talk to people and they say, I like to take people back. Well, what was your first memory? And sometimes these triggers we don't even know we have. Why do I get upset when someone says this? Or why do I feel hurt and angry? And it could be that unresolved grief and mourning that we've carried and didn't even realize. It was probably because of a loss we never got to deal with.
Traumas.
Yes.
Traumas that have not dealt with child, and we don't know how to find relief or a substitute. And I found when I was 5 years old, my father was military, and he always had the answer, but it was going to be the way he delivered his answer that was going to hurt my feelings. And I chose I chose to pray about it, and I chose to ask God for His help so that I could get through the trauma that my father caused. So my father didn't know who his father was. So he really didn't know how to relate to his children. He had four boys, and I'm the oldest and the best looking. But all joking aside, when I asked God to help me understand the feelings that I was getting, what God said to me was I didn't need to go to my father. He said, if you just ask me, I will provide the answers for you. So you can choose to talk to me or you can choose to hurt. I choose to talk. I chose to talk to God. And choice is a big part of my presentation. When I talk to people, I talk to them about choosing. Choosing. Choose, choice, chosen. Three C's. And it's very important that we understand that our choices have consequences.